Oh, there's Miss Emily.
Hello, Emily.
I'm so glad she's back. She's part of the family again. She left us. She did. She left us. It was sad. We were all depressed.
One of the worst decisions of my life, Lucas.
Yeah, I'm just glad we all agree that was. Yeah, we could see that. We could definitely see that. I got my pizza. Okay, everybody, got your pizza? Got your
Yes,
pizza?
sir.
I just need to point out.
What kind of pizza is that? That was not good undercarriage. Do you not watch the pizza reviews?
I'm supposed to have good undercarriage for my pizza.
You're supposed to have good undercarriage, yeah.
Wow.
I'm just pointing out that my team is very upset. The box of pizza arrived, and they came to me and they said, "But Lucas, it's Mexican Day.
You know, had
Mexican Day."
this video is about culture. Had my team said that, I would have been, you know what? Now you don't get pizza or Mexican. Congratulations, you played yourself. You played yourself. I would have taken the whole box, and I would have gone to my office, and I would have made them watch me eat the entire thing.
Wow.
I'll eat the whole thing. I'll pound down 2 large pizzas. Don't even
Just
care.
on principle?
You got chips. You got pizza chips. What are you talking about?
On principle and spite. Yes.
David Spiteful? Y'all got to be kidding me. I've never heard of such a.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I am going to jump off.
Wait a minute. You're supposed to be part of the culture discussion.
No, her audio's terrible. She's got to go.
It is, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Fine.
All
I
right.
see how it is then.
We'll go. All right. See you guys later.
All right. Bye.
Good to be back.
Bye.
Okay. David, you said you were talking about culture. What
I
are you
wasn't
talking
talking about culture. I thought the video was about culture.
We take the trust of our listeners very seriously, and I hope that you know that when I say that Shopware is the best automotive shop management system, I believe it in my heart of hearts, and now it's even better. With new features like Tech App, it streamlines the inspection and dispatching process for you and your technicians. And with massive improvements to Shopware's exclusive digital vehicle experience, they have stepped their game up to a whole new level. So if you haven't scheduled a demo yet, click the link in the show notes and do it today. If you've already had a demo and you were waiting to finally switch, there has never been a better time. So click that link and get started today. Oh, the video's about culture? Nobody told
Yeah.
me.
I'm not eating pizza. I'm eating pizza flavored chips.
I had mine last night.
Oh, you ate yours
Pizza.
last night? She
Yes.
bought you pizza for this video and you ate it last night, Frank. What kind of culture is that?
Well, I sold the shop, so she had to send it to my house, and I had to share it with my
You
wife.
sold
and
the shop?
in-laws.
You
what-
sold Frank's European service?
I did.
Is the guy named Frank?
He's not,
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
company still is.
I never would have thought that would have happened.
Oh, you never spent enough time with me. That's been on my radar for years. That's the end game. That's
Right.
Listen, that's the end game. You need to have an end game. What is the end game? You're leaving your company at some point in your life.
Yeah,
You're leaving it with a plan or without. So that's
Yep.
up to you.
that's true. But there's a
Working
lot of us who don't have a plan.
But no, you're not kidding. And those are the guys who end up working up until lunchtime the day of their funeral.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a good plan.
And, you know, I get
Oh, I completely reject that idea. I think that's a fantastic plan. You walk in one day and you keel over. But like, just think about it. You could be 85 and look at Schindler. His dad still works in the business. The plan was, I don't know if this was intentional or whatever, but the son took over the business. So Schindler's Garage is still ran by Schindler, right? And dad still comes in at 70 something years old and, breaks things. And so, not the best situation for the son. He's like, he comes in and we keep him happy. But when you're 70 something, like, you got to have something to do because
There's a good
otherwise
chance- well, you do.
you end up
And
dead.
So look, I'm coaching. I'm doing stuff with all the time.
Yeah, you're looking for stuff to do.
So I've got stuff to do. My wife wishes I didn't now that she's got nothing to do because she worked at the shop. But the problem, David, is that when it's not a succession like that and the owner dies, it usually creates an enormous amount of chaos.
Yeah.
Nobody has login information. Nobody knows the
Oh, yeah.
relationships with the vendors. Bank accounts can't get access.
Joe Sievert teaches a whole class on that. It's called What If. Like, you should have everything in a Google file with all your passwords and this, that, and the other. And like key people have that information. Say, hey, when I die, this is all the bank accounts, this is all the debt, the credit cards, here's how you log in, yada, 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 yada. And so if you do pass, then somebody can get in and they can handle everything. And you should have your will all lined up and the durable power of attorney all lined up. Like, what if I become incapacitated? Who's going to be making the decisions for me and the business and financial decisions? Like, all that should be lined out. But assuming all that's lined out,
then you're okay.
Keep going.
If you want to keep working, yeah.
From the other
Well,
side,
I mean, you're still working. You're just not at the shop.
Well, the last 3
What
years,
you did
I
was
telling
you
Kevin,
you
I
you
wasn't
ran
at
your
the
wife
shop.
out of a job, and you went to go and did something else on your own.
If you can look, you can see behind me the Frank Scandura workshop studio.
That's
When I'm not working, I'm playing, making sawdust. So
some of us still don't work
I'm
now.
on the other side of
We're
this
in our
right
40s, not working.
And so like we're doing the thing, and nobody died for this to happen, but we're on the thing where we don't have passwords and we don't have access, and we don't. I'm going to tell you what, that is one of the
Because you fired the employee who did.
But that's the problem with somebody else being in charge of all of that information.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. You shouldn't have put that guy in charge, Lucas. That was a bad decision.
Anyway,
a little sore subject, David. Just a little bit. Just a little bit, David. Just a little bit. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something.
You're fixing it. It's good. It's fine.
You talk about culture, and right there's the perfect example of it, because they talked about culture. Everything they said was about this culture, this thing we're doing, this great big thing. But you know what? In the core of who they were, in the core of their heart, they did not believe any of it. They were doing it for one reason, to get something, and then they said on the other side of it what they were trying to convince everybody the culture was. And I'm going to tell you something. Walking into a culture that's that defunct, holy cow. Like, you want to talk about cleaning up a mess, buddy, that is a mess.
And every company has a culture.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's good or bad.
Good or bad. And somebody has to decide who's setting the stage for that culture. And my early culture probably wasn't great.
Yeah.
Had a lot of turnover. Before I learned how to create systems and hold people accountable, holding this guy accountable was the first person that had to be held accountable. Then I was able to change the culture of the company. And when you don't have culture figured out, you have people who come in to work for you who don't like boundaries, who don't like rules and regulations. They want to come in, do whatever they want, the way they want. Don't tell me what to do. I know how to do my job. What do you know? And when you can change that successfully and you start bringing in people, you have the people there who do want that and need that. And everybody needs boundaries in this industry, every industry. But they need and they just need to know where's the guardrails.
But it's beyond that. Human beings thrive with structure, right?
Yes.
And we need structure. And as shop owners, we often look at it like, oh, I don't want to hold them back, and I don't want to tell them what they should or shouldn't do. I don't want to. But no, that's a miserable place to work, right? Like, we think we're doing it out of a positive. It's really because we're lazy and we don't want to put the work in to do it because it's a lot of work. But they thrive in structure. And if they don't thrive in structure, you got a bigger problem. Right?
And those are the problem employees. Those are the drama queens. Those are the prima donnas. Those are the guys who are stripping bolts and not saying anything. They're not using torque wrenches to put wheels on, and are creating problems for you.
Yes.
That haven't even been manifested yet. I don't know it's so much as people are lazy. I think they don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that.
Trust me, we've met plenty of people. We show them just a few steps on, hey, this is how you get started with the how, step 1, 2, 3. They don't even finish step 1. And they're like, and they start making excuses. It's like, dude, now you're just lazy. Use the how.
That goes back to holding the guy in the mirror accountable or the gal in the mirror accountable. Because if you can't hold yourself accountable to a 3-bullet point action plan, how are you ever going to possibly hold your team accountable to anything?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're right. And I think that impulse, that desire to go do the thing and what we want to do right at this minute is a lot of the reason that we see so many owner operator, if you will, repair shops struggle. is because it's what's in front of us at this exact second is what I want to do, David. And it's never following the system. It's never following the plan. It's, I'm going to go over here and do this. I'm going to go over here and do this. I'm going to go over here and do this. We never gain consistency and move ourselves in a direction. And, when Shopware is part of this video, and one of the things about Shopware when we implemented Shopware in the shop is we built a system around Shopware. We didn't go in and put Shopware in and say, hey, we're going to put our workflow into Shopware. Carolyn came to me and said, hey, here's how Shopware is supposed to work. And so let's work with your workflow and build a new one that kind of does what you want to do. And so she spent a ton of time with me going over how to do that and how to set it up. Well, the thing is our SMS, or Shopware in this case, is the core of the organization and really the core of the culture, because it's set in place, the standards and the guardrails for where we go and what we do. And so now everybody in the shop knows what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, how they're supposed to do it. And that takes all the noise out of the culture, right? We just went through this thing where we had somebody who was not buying into the culture, didn't believe in the culture, and really struggled with the belief system here, right? And so they kept trying to change it. And I've seen firsthand what happens when you have a system that breaks and you take it from something that is working to something that's not working, how much noise comes up and how much division is created. So the core of culture starts with structure. And I don't think that you get a solid culture without a solid structure first.
So in a former position that I held with a different company, one of my jobs was CRM, ERP deployment. And when we stopped fighting the company as to trying to make the software work the way we needed it to, and decided to figure out how to use the software the way it was designed, everything changed, to your point, right?
Right.
And once we learned that and we stopped fighting it, the training became so much better. Obviously, the positive attitude started to grow and that culture started to shift.
Yes, absolutely. You're exactly right. And I think that's the big thing, is that if you don't have a system that works at its core, it's going to be really hard to develop culture. Right now, I am pretty strict about our culture here. And I've faltered here and there, but like, we have a belief system and everybody here believes that. Over this last thing that happened, they all set this person down and then they came and talked to me and said, hey, I don't think this is going to work. Right? It wasn't me. Like, I wasn't the owner saying, hey, this isn't working, even though I kind of knew it wasn't. It was the team coming to me saying, this thing isn't part of who we are. This doesn't work here.
Perfect
and so the
example
ability
of
to
having
filter
a
that
rock
out.
solid culture.
Right.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And, I think Sam's got a really unique situation, or a really unique opportunity here. And I say that because I'm a good friend of her dad's. And I know what his culture is. I know what his belief system is. And everything in that shop has been built around his belief system. And at its very core is what he believes is right and wrong. And so I think it's really interesting to see Sam come into this situation where now she's developing and growing that culture and moving it. But it's the same, she's a little Tom Shearer, right? And so at the core, that was her belief system that was taught to her from a very young age. And so the culture didn't experience that disruption. Earlier we were talking about Joe Schindler. And now we have that succession plan. I think that's why strong cultured shops can have a parent to child succession plan that works. And I think it works really well. I really do. And Sam, tell us about your culture. Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. So, when I first started working with my dad back in 2017, we were at a really big growth stage. Mm-hmm. So, I came on as a pit stop. I wasn't intending to stay in this industry forever. And when I came in, we didn't really have a strong culture at the time. We didn't really have a big structure. There was one person really holding us back from getting everything in place.
I remember that.
Yeah. We started to implement structure, and we were butting heads with that one person. And as soon as he left, that structure stuck and the culture started to be put into place. We have a rules of engagement sheet that every time we hire someone, we talk about these rules of engagement. And it's pretty much, we will act this way. We will act professionally. We will show up properly. We will be kind to each other. We will be trustworthy. And everything that we do revolves around these rules of engagement, and they revolve around the way that we want to show up to each other and to our clients and to our community. And because we have those guidelines, we can ensure that our culture is the way that we want it to be. And people know coming in how they are expected to act and how how everyone intends to. I lost my train of thought. How everyone is supposed to mesh together, and how they can expect to be, interacting with their new coworkers and their new team members. And I think that having that strong culture is really important. And as I interact with other shops, I can kind of not necessarily take my rules of engagement and push them on other shops, because that's not what I'm trying to do. Everyone has their own culture, but my goal is to leave the industry better than I found it. And in order to do that, we need to change the way that consumers see us as independent repair shops. And we need to be seen as trustworthy, and we need to be seen as people who are going to take care of them. And when we have strong cultures internally in our shops, that flows out to our customers and the consumer.
You're exactly right. And something that has been resonating with me here lately is when we were in Arizona, I was talking to Cecil. And Cecil, I was talking to him about some of the issues going on. And Cecil said, "You remember my rule?" And I said, "You've got a bunch of rules, Cecil. You're going to have to come off with it. You got so many at this point, I can't keep up. And I'm breaking most of them, right?" And he said, "My rule is everybody wins." And so when all this tough stuff was going on, one of the things that kept coming back to my mind was what Cecil said. Everybody wins. The client wins. The shop wins. The owner wins. The staff wins. And so I began to realize something in the configuration we had. We had somebody who only wanted to be the one winning, right? Had no interest in other people winning, especially the client. That was a problem. I don't agree with that. I'm here to get what I can get out of this. Why is the client going to win here? I don't like that. And it was expressed, this is a game to me. And so it's not that that's wrong. Please don't misunderstand. It's antithetical to who we are. And I think that when we set our culture, and Frank, you can probably speak to this a little bit. Like, we're in this world where we keep talking about the technician shortage. And I'll never forget Rick White saying, like, "Hey, you need Mr. Right, not Mr. Right now. You're hiring people that can fog a mirror." And the problem is they don't align with what you believe. And you expect to have a good environment by hiring somebody who's not aligned with who you are or what you believe. I mean, seriously, do you think that's going to happen? But we're under so much pressure. It seems like we're bringing people in. Now, Frank, you're kind of like me. We have a presence in the industry. People know who we are. And you had a nice shop. I've got a decent shop. Part of that is those people want to come work for a place like that, right? Really good people want to work in really good places. And so I think that's part of it. And it's hard for the small shops. And I've got that feedback from some people. "Hey, Lucas, you're telling me not to hire the Mr. Right Now, but Mr. Right Now is all I can find. I've been looking for months." So how do we navigate that, Frank? How do we make sure the people we're bringing in can fit our culture when the pool's not so deep?
It's honestly, it starts with the recruiting process. I coached a shop who had a large problem with drug users, and she couldn't understand why so many people in the community use drugs. So I had a theory. I says they all talk to each other, and they say they don't drug test over there, so if you need a job, go over there.
Yeah.
And I said, if you put it in your ads, willing to submit to a background and drug test, and within 6 months, no more druggies applying for the job. No more druggies slipping through, because now we have a level of accountability. And that creates an environment that other people want to work in, right? Because somebody's lit up at work and they're drinking or they're using drugs. They're a danger to themselves and everyone around them.
Yeah.
So now we set a cultural standard, drug-free. And Lucas, you nailed it. Guys and gals want to work at good shops.
Yeah.
They just want to go to work and do their job. Why are we making it so difficult for people to go into a work environment that's jacked up? So you will attract good people. And are techs hard to find? Harder to find. There's still, I think, a decent pool out there. People who want to get out of the environments that they're in and go into a great environment. And we're all on the same Facebook forums, and you see these technicians posting these abusive environments that they're in. That one guy beating on an employee, I'm sure that video made the rounds to everybody.
I missed that one.
Oh, well,
David wants to review that now.
Yeah.
Find it.
I'm going to go look
something
for
to
it.
do this afternoon.
please do. It's kind of shocking to watch.
The owner jumped the employee?
Yes, the employee's hovered down like this, holding his hands over his head. The guy's hitting him in the head and screaming at him. How are we not communicating to techs in the workforce, this is not acceptable? And I say it all the time. Look, man, there's a lot of great shops out there. You may not be at one of them. Go look for the good shop. So it starts really in the recruiting process. We've had a lot of people come in for the interview and then ghost us after, because here's our standards. Here's our values.
Absolutely.
Here's what we won't tolerate. Here's our expectations, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about a time that you were asked to do something unethical in a car, and how did you react, right? So these are questions that we ask, and it's like, you can see their shirt starting to, uh-oh.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to know how, when somebody told you to do something unethical in a car, what was your reaction? That's why I quit. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's go to the next question. Hey, I just do what I'm told. They tell me to do that, I do that. Well, you can't work here.
Yeah, you're
you
not
need
going to
people.
be a good fit
Right.
for this.
So-
And you're not going to thrive in this environment. And you know, look, I'm going to tell you something. I've had a rash of folks from dealers. And that was one of the big things that I've seen, is that culture is turn and burn. That culture is not taking care of the client. That culture is manipulation, right? Like, we're going to manipulate this. We're going to manipulate that. Couldn't you add just a few more hours on there because I'm low on my bonus? And couldn't you do this? And couldn't you just put these parts on here? And like, that's, to me, the fact that we have to get to that point, right? And it's this adversarial, me against you. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm beginning to believe that it's built that way on purpose. I don't understand the logic. I don't know why they would build it that way. But it would be really hard for me to look at it and say that this isn't intentional.
It's built that way because it's all about numbers and not about people.
Yep.
And you can't, when you don't value people, right, and having a great culture means you value people. You want to build them up. You want them to be better today than they were yesterday. My early days at the dealership, you know, you'd write up a car for an oil leak. You pretty much knew it was valve cover gaskets. So almost all the V8 Mercedes back then leaked at the valve cover gaskets.
Yeah.
And I watched this one tech walking through the shop with valve cover gaskets in one hand and a rear main seal in the other. As he walks by the trash can, he tosses the rear main seal in the trash and puts the valve covers on the car and sits on his bench for a couple more hours to burn time on the clock.
Yep.
So he's flagging for a repair that he didn't do, and everybody around there sees it.
Yep.
Lucas,
You're exactly right.
You need to really reward your team, if you haven't done it already, for coming forward and saying, this ain't working.
Yeah.
It's got to go.
Absolutely.
Because-
We went through that, right? We had somebody who was from that environment, and they're saying, look, man, if you'll just let me do this, I can wreck all these things. And when it doesn't fix the car, I'm going to get the hours for it. You've come in here and you're trying to do all this testing behind me. If you just let me do what I'm doing, then I'll make a ton of hours and I'll sell all this stuff. Bud, I don't think you understand. The desired outcome here is to fix the car. Right? Like, I'm not trying to be like that. That's not who I am. And you're not going to make it here. I'm sorry. Right? And I think that one of the things that happens is they come in and they ghost us and we feel bad about ourselves. Right? And we're wondering what's wrong with us. We never take into account it might be them.
And
right?
That kind of dawned on me recently. Sometimes I feel like I'm in high school again. Well, it's rejection, but no, they're just not man or woman enough to step up and say, you know what, it's not the right place for me. So they ghost me, and now I'm okay with it.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I think you talk about that owner beating the employee, right? How do we get to a point like that? And I think the number one destroyer of cultures is unmet expectations. Well, what's the number one cause of unmet expectations? It's because we've not set the expectations. And we've not put them on paper and said, is this a rational expectation? Should I expect this? Could I do that if I was in their shoes? My first business coach one time said, hey, you're frustrated with your wife because you have expectations and you've not communicated those to her. And I said, okay, I'm going to go communicate them to her. And he said, I would write those down on paper first and read them and tell me again if you really want to do that. And I wrote them down and I looked at it and I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to say any of those things, right? That's not realistic. That's not a good thing. And so I think as owners, we don't do that.
Well, listen, I train service advisors through Autotech IQ to set expectations with the customer at drop-off.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm doing it with the customer, shame on me if I don't do it with my team.
Yeah.
And if I don't set expectations, then I have to live up to their expectations and not what I want to lay out for the culture of this company.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kevin, I'm going to pick on your boss just a wee bit here.
Okay.
So getting to know Eric very well, I've learned something about him. Him and I have some things in common, and it's that Eric really likes fast cars and trucks. And Eric started a business so he could afford the nice cars and trucks, and he wanted to go do that. And the focus was always on that. And he said one day, I have the shop, and it really is just to put all the parts on I sell. I wasn't really trying to make money, and I wanted to make fast trucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So what's the culture like there? Because that's a very different dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. Because he didn't approach it from the get-go. He was a tech, turned owner, and he never approached it from like, hey, I'm trying to grow a mega business. That was never his desire. What has that done to the culture where you guys are?
It's made it very, very fun because that is still our core. That's still like who we are. It's in our DNA is to build cool trucks. But to be frank, it's very hard to be profitable doing that. Yeah. And, once that lens kind of shifted and said, okay, I want to build something special, something that I can, that has a legacy. There was that shift and that dynamical shift that happened, which even then, trying to figure out how to price effectively and how to price accurately to still be profitable, but still get the work. And then recognize that just because you wanted a big fast truck, maybe we weren't going to be the good fit for you. Yeah. And at that point, I think that was before my time. But I think at that point, once that focus shifted to say, okay, we're still gonna build cool stuff, but it's the day-to-day, the maintenance, the brake jobs, that's the stuff that's going to pay the bills, and it's going to allow us to still do that fun stuff.
Go ahead.
Just like, the merchant transmission is still a thing in the diesel industry, that's a sought after part. So we're still able to keep our toe in that world. Not to mention Eric now has a race car. So that's kind of cool that we're able to, again, have that contact. But more often thinking about the race car, even we're able to be where our people are. Race cars don't just show up places. They have to be pulled there. Well, so those people that own these race cars, those are our people. Those are the people that we want to connect with. Those are the people that we want to help. If we're able to generate some business, okay. But ultimately, it's just to connect with the people. And he still holds us to that. And it makes it really easy to come to work every day.
Absolutely. And so for those who don't know, Merchant Automotive is a massive name in the Duramax community, right? Huge name. And I relate to that a little bit because I'm fairly familiar with a knife company that's close to the family, right? And I've watched that knife company go from making knives to being a brand, right? You smell what I'm stepping in here.
Absolutely.
Now it's about the brand of what this organization is, and they're nationally known, and they're like one of the most expensive knife makers on the planet. Yet they have these thousands and thousands of followers, and there's Facebook groups about them, and there's all of these things. And so now the people who come work there say, this is not about making knives.
Right.
This is about the culture. This is about who we are. This is about supporting those people who buy what we make. This is bigger than us. I'll never forget the beginning of See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. He talks about the railroad story. And he talks about the fact that this railroad car pulls up on the siding. And this big booming voice comes out and says, Frank, is that you? He says, yeah. And he goes up and they talk. And when he leaves, they hug and he walks off. And everybody out there says, hey, Frank, isn't that the president of the railroad? And they said, uh-huh. And he said, well, then can you explain to me why it is you're out here nailing Spike and he's the president of the railroad if you two started at the same time? He said, oh, it's real simple. He said he went to work for the railroad. I went to work for $3.15 an hour. Right? and so I think that defines the culture. Yep. Is what are we working for? What are we trying to accomplish? Yep. And the money comes after the fact, right? Like I think so often we put the money at the forefront and Frank, don't you kick my butt. Like, I know the money's important. I'm not saying it's not important. We got to pay the bills.
Can't be the first thing.
It can't be the first thing.
And it's not the first thing with most applicants.
Yeah.
It's important, but there's a lot of Gallup polls on this where money is not the number one reason why they would choose another place to go work.
Yeah.
Money is not the number one reason why they want to go work for you.
Yep. Somewhere between 7 and 14 on the list. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Is what it consistently
good tech
comes
can
back.
find a job, right? I mean, if they're good at what they do, they can walk in anywhere. So it's more like the opposite, right? Like, why should I come work for you?
They somehow don't believe that, though.
That's the message we have to get out there.
Yeah.
If you're good at what you do, you can work anywhere for anyone. And basically write your own check. I have a lot of kids come up to me because of my reputation in town. Their parents will say, hey, my nephew, my cousin, my son, my daughter wants to get in the automotive field. What would you tell them? And I'll sit them down for a couple of hours and just go through what are your hopes, what are your dreams, what are your expectations. Here's the path that you should take. And I actually had one of those high school just come in 7 or 8 years later applying for a job that, had become an Audi diagnostic technician. I was like blown away. I was like, cool, and I had completely forgotten that conversation. They actually had a copy of my book that I, wrote to Eric. Dear Eric, I'm glad to have met you. Hope you are successful in your journey. So we have to get that message. We've got to get involved in a high school level. We have to get to these kids who are taking these classes because they have to get credits to pass in most cases. Yep. There's a handful of kids who really want to work with their hands and be in the trades. There's a handful of kids who are there. Maybe this will work. Maybe I'll learn enough to work on my own car. And I've spoken to these kids, and that's how I know that. So we really need to get down in the classroom level and start educating them. There's really bad places out there, just like grocery stores, and there's really great places out there, just like anything else, where you can work. Be aware. And so many people leave the industry because they end up in one of those bad places and they just burn them up. Just burn them up.
Well, and so one of the things that I've noticed, especially with a lot of technicians now, is money is a hot button topic, right? And build hours is a hot button topic. And these guys will have mental breakdowns over build hours. And you do a little bit of research, you ask questions, and you find that's because of the place they worked before. There was no security. You didn't hit those hours, you were gone. And there was no integrity, and there were people stealing jobs from other people and people manipulating things to get things the way they want. And I say, okay, well, now how can that coexist with a shop like mine where I've got this team who's, hey, let me help you. What do you need? Let me back you up. Hey, I'm going to take care of you. Hey, you take this job, I take that job. Let's figure out how we take care of the client. Right? How can those two things coexist? And I've had a really hard time bringing those guys into this culture and helping them coexist because I have seen guys have full-blown anxiety attacks over letting go of that. And this is not who we are. Now, look, how did we achieve that in our shop? Well, we start talking about how to manage your money. We start, and look, I'm not David. I'm not over here telling them where to spend their money and how to spend their money. I ain't trying to get yelled at. He still gets death threats. I am saying, let's talk about, you know, do you know how many high schoolers I've met that have an IRA or have any money put back right now? Very, very few. We're not teaching the kids about money management from the get-go. And so they're almost taught in that environment that you will not survive unless you do this. And it becomes the core of who they are. It becomes the core of the representation of being what an automotive technician is. It's no longer about fixing the car. It's about surviving, right? It's that dog-eat-dog world. And I'm opposed to that. I got a problem with it. I don't like it at all.
Listen, what I've learned in my half a century, 50 years in this business, I started when I was 13, you can do the math. Most people who struggle financially don't have an income problem, they have a spending problem.
Yes.
Every single time I have a technician going, I need more money, I need more money, I need more money. And I finally started teaching a Dave Ramsey class to my team, and I offered it to everybody. I said, you step up and buy the program, take the class with me. If you don't get any value out of it, I'll give you your money back personally.
Yeah.
And the few that took the class changed their lives and thanked me. And everybody else just wants to complain. I need more money. I need more money. I need more money.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that, go ahead. One of the things that makes us part of like who we are is we have a requirement to have so many educational hours every quarter. Okay, continued education, whether it be vision, whatever kind of thing. But financial university falls into that acceptable education that would count towards like a quarterly bonus kind of thing. So like, Frank, to your point, it's if ownership and management is helping the tech outside of the shop, helping the tech at home just live a better life, it makes it better, easier to come to work.
Absolutely.
It does, yes. Because the pressure's off of the family. Divorce rates are nearly double for families that have $10,000 in debt and no savings versus no debt and $10,000 in savings. Everything else the same, just because of the financial pressure. And I just realized that, if 70 to 75% of people live paycheck to paycheck, that includes shop owners, right? My early years was like, okay, if I can get these 3 cars picked up, I can make payroll. How many of us have all been there? Right?
Absolutely. Heck, I'm still there sometimes.
Some of us are living there day to day, buddy.
Right. So, and that's dangerous.
I don't live paycheck to paycheck. I don't get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Well, you need to fix that, sir. You're worthy of getting paid. When I first opened up,
I don't know about
I don't do
that,
jack, Frank. I don't think you understand.
Entirely.
But I remember when we were first opening up and we tell them, if I could just get $10,000 picked up this week, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to run a business on $10,000 a week today, right? The times have changed so much. So everything's relative. You need to really learn how to price correctly. If you're not profitable, something's wrong, because this is a profitable business. It's a good business. And make sure you surround yourself with the right people and the right customers.
If you're not profitable, you're going to have a really tough time with culture, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're going to be under so much stress at all times, and you're just trying to survive, and you can't thrive when you're in survival mode, right? You can't thrive emotionally. You can't thrive culturally. You just can't do it. And I know a lot of techs say, oh, that culture stuff's mumbo jumbo. No, it's not. And you nailed it when we started out. You have a culture. And whether you're the one who's setting it or not does not matter. It can be a good one or a bad one, but it is dictated by the culture. What we do on a daily basis and who we are and how we feel when we leave that business is dictated by the culture. And look, I'm going to tell you, as an owner, one of the things that I do know is that if it is not happening in here, if it's not on my heart, and I don't believe in our core values, and I don't believe in what we're doing, it's not going to make it to them.
That's certainly not. No.
And that's one of the big misses. Now, here's the other thing. We joke about the pizza party thing. You can't buy your way to a good culture. And that's the joke behind the pizza party. is because you can't go back to your team and say thank you with a pizza party without truly meaning thank you, right? You can't just say, hey, you're hitting this bonus. You can't reward with the carrot, but for so long, right? Because what happens when the donkey gets the carrot? The donkey's not hungry anymore. And so it has to be a sweeter carrot, right? You can't always reward with the stick and say, you're not doing it right, I'm going to punish you. So wouldn't it be easier to lead by creating reward and creating opportunity for everybody and helping them understand why this is best for everyone else? I just think that this idea that we're going to go back and give them a slice of pizza, go back and give them a box of pizza. The last dealer tech that worked for me was complaining, and he said, the sales guys got the first pick of the pizza. By the time it got to us, it was cold. Jesus Christ.
There's a total lack of appreciation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're missing the boat. And I get that there's a lot of guys under pressure. There's a lot of guys stressed out right now. But, one of the things we talked about when we were in Arizona was that a lot of shop owners are going around putting out the fire, and they keep putting out the fire over and over and over again, but they never take the pot off the hot eye to make the fire stop completely. They just cover it with a lid, or they put the fire out, and then they're like, it started back. Well, until you begin to develop the culture in your business right now, until you start dealing with the small problems in your business and solving those things to where they don't keep happening, things don't get better. They get worse. Because you can't always put out all the fires.
And I will warn shop owners who go down that path of improving your culture, and when there's no more fires to put out, don't be tempted to start a fire so you have something to do. Because that's what you guys do.
I feel personally attacked, Frank. That was me.
You don't start fires.
Let me tell you, I've done this. I've done it all.
You, Lucas. Get out of
I've
here.
done it all. Okay, that's how I became an expert in my field, by making the mistakes in advance for you.
Yeah, I can see that. Hey, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know the story. I'm not going to go rehashing it. I'm sure you've got PTSD from the story. I know what happened because I had talked to your dad for months and months and months about the particular situation with that particular deal and said, hey, I don't think that person should be there anymore.
Yeah.
I think they probably need to go. This is probably unhealthy. I'm worried somebody's going to get shot out of this deal, right? This is getting nasty, dude.
Yeah.
How quick was it? Because I'm guilty of holding on to somebody way too long because I feel bad and I want to help them and I want to make their life better and I want to do all the things, not realizing the best thing that I could do for them, if that's what I wanted for them, was to cut them loose. And one person, Frank, how many, just rough guess off the top of your head, how many businesses have you seen that one person destroyed the culture?
Oh, every single one of them has that one animal who drags down the entire morale of the company, and the owners get hung up on, but they're a big producer, but they sell a lot, but they crank out hours.
Yep.
And that's the
There you
danger
go.
point.
Sam's like, this sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
If you haven't been through it, you will.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sam, how long did it take for that culture to kind of blend back together and come together?
The next morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And we had a guy that was like that, and I didn't realize it. And then, he goes, look, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And he leaves. And the next day, everybody says, wow, it's about time he's gotten out of here, man. And, he did this, he did that. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next day. And then everybody else steps up to the plate and started producing more hours than that animal could ever produce, and higher quality, and no more comebacks. I can go on and on.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Our best technician right now, I would say he consistently produces almost 100 hours a week. And he will tell you if you ask him, he was afraid to make a mistake or ask a question because he was just awful. He was so nasty to everyone. And he was someone who he needed to hold all the power. He needed to have all the knowledge. He wouldn't share anything. And if you asked him a question, he would belittle you and make you feel stupid. But as soon as he left, the culture just grew, and everyone was there to help everyone. And that's how it is today. Everyone is willing to help everyone. You ask a question, you get your help, and you grow from it.
Yep, 100%. And you know what? One of the number one signs they have to go is if they do not respect the leader, right? If they don't respect the owner, because I know what happened in that situation. Right then, I'm telling you, the minute that they disrespect the owner, the moment they disrespect the person who's in charge, that's when we stop and we say, okay, where's the problem at? Is it us, you, them? We have to diagnose that. We have to test that out and understand. And the worst case scenario is the leader is the holder of the bad culture, right? Now, I've seen a lot of owners who are jaded as all get out. They've been hiring techs, and the techs can't fix the cars, won't fix the cars. They don't realize that it's all because they don't have the system in the shop. They don't have a process. They don't have any flow. They don't know what they're doing, right? And so what happens is they get jaded with everybody else, and everybody else is always the problem, and they're mean and they're hateful and they're disrespectful to everybody. And so the worst case scenario is you have a member of leadership, you have a member of management, you have an owner who is toxic. And that, at that point, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, because most of them will never see it. I've dealt with some narcissistic shop owners before, and they believe they are the bee's knees. Their team hates their guts, but they really do believe they're awesome. And Frank, you ever dealt with that?
I used to be that owner. I got humbled. I'm Sicilian, so Sicilians tend to get into a fit of rage. And I have learned how to not allow that to happen anymore. And, doing things like walking in, who taught you how to do breaks like that? Get your crap out of here. You're fired.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, can I show you the way I'd like to see it done? Can we talk about this for a minute? Let me show you the why behind it. And that creates oh, okay, I didn't know that, or I didn't know I could do it that way. I created most of the problems in my company in my first 5 years.
Yeah.
100% my fault. And when I realized that, then I could start changing me, which changed the culture, which changed the company, which is what helped me get a fat paycheck in January when I sold it. And I'm really quite proud of the staff. All stayed on. The new owners are remote. They're out of California, so they're very grateful for the processes and the culture that's in place. And they paid a little extra for that, in my opinion. I got a little more than market value when you do the math. But we did the people, we did the emotion. So it's
good for you, Frank. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that.
David's not proud.
Now, to everybody else, I'm just telling you, everybody's going to quit within that first year. I don't care who you are. Not Frank's shop, but everybody else. Everybody's going to quit in the first year. You know why? Because it doesn't sustain. I will say there's one exception. If the culture is centered around a shop manager that is not the owner.
Thank you. Yes.
If the shop manager sets the culture and it's their shop, not yours, their shop, then the staff doesn't work for you. They work for the shop manager, and that shop manager sets the tone. They're not going to leave because the shop manager's in place. Now,
correct. Yeah.
You switch ownership, and that shop owner has to be incentivized to stay. They got to really want to stay. And as long as they do, everything's fine. But if they leave, good night. It's all over.
When a new owner comes in and starts kicking a dog, everybody scatters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, it freaks. I mean, at the very least, it freaks people out. Because even like if things are just they're stable and settled, and all of a sudden a new owner comes in, and they're like, hey, nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be exactly the same. Just keep doing what you're doing. Everything's going great. I don't care who it is. People freak out, and they're like, something is going to change. Or the minute there is something, like all of a sudden, hey, we're using a different set of brake pads now. Well, we never used this brand before. What's going on? Yeah, but these were $5 cheaper. It's like, whoa, okay, here we go. Here we go. Yeah,
Right,
so I'm going to start putting applications in. Yeah, everybody freaks out. And it might not be it may be completely benign, but I don't know, people are weird.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, too. I should make this point. When you're talking about recruiting and hiring people, 80% of people are malleable. 80% of people are malleable. They will walk into the culture and they will conform to what is already there in place. That's 80% of people. Then you have 10% of people that thrive in the chaos. They want chaos. They are looking for places that don't have a solid culture because they want to hide in the chaos, because they want to do something nefarious. They want to do as little work as possible, steal, cheat. They don't care. Whatever. They need that chaos. And then you have some people that will actually benefit the culture. They will actually make it better. They will be a force for positive change. Those are few and far between. They're really, really rare. They're usually, we call them 5%ers. That's what I call them, 5%ers. Like Lucas is a 5%er. He's like, there's only one Lucas. Most owners.
Most shop owners are.
Yeah, most shop owners are 5%ers. They can't go work for someone else because they set the tone most of the time, and everybody sort of gravitates towards them. Where if all of a sudden they have to be malleable to somebody else, it's sometimes a clash.
I'm just wondering, is this where we take a poll to ask how many people in this recording believe that David could go get a job and work for somebody else? I mean, like, I'm just curious.
Oh, I'm completely unemployable. I could not. I can't do it. I've tried. It just doesn't
think it'd
work.
be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I know, right? New reality TV show will make millions.
You try to fly under the radar for a little while and you try to follow the rules or whatever, but eventually you're like, I'm gonna make this my own. Like, I could make this better. And if you're right, you're right. Like, if you can make it better, you try to make it better, and then some people just don't like that. They get upset and then they fire you.
We got to be really crystal clear. When David refers to the 5%ers, he means 95% crazy.
Yes.
Because we got to be a little bit crazy to do this. We have to. Visionaries, anybody who's worked with a visionary knows there's a little bit of insanity that comes with this big picture thing. And we come in with these great ideas, or we go to a seminar or a shop tour or a 20 group, and we come back with, we're going to blah, blah. And that's the 95% crazy part. And what we need is, and if you haven't done it, read Rocket Fuel. We teach that at Transformers Institute. We need those people who can ground us and say, okay, I see what you'd like to do, but it's not feasible to open a shop on Mars right now. So what if we did this instead, right? I know you want to be the first one to have the
Sam's
rover
like,
repairs.
God almighty, this sounds so familiar.
Right? So we need those integrators to balance us out and really put the action into place. Henry Ford was a visionary, had an integrator. Walt Disney, his brother, I think Roy, was his integrator. Walt Disney had the vision. His brother made it happen. So those are the things that are really important.
That awareness is so important. That awareness of that one concept. Because, for years I went around and spouted all these big ideas I had, and then I would look back and say, why didn't you guys go do that? Where are you guys at? Like, what's going on here?
Yep.
And just today I had a conversation with Jesse from ASTA. We had an event committee meeting. And I'd been saying to them, like, hey, we should be setting the standard in North Carolina that we believe that technicians and service advisors and shop owners and shop managers should undergo continual education, right? And there should be annual training, and they should undergo this training, and we should give them certificates to show that, hey, the person working on your car is participating in continuing education like virtually every other profession in the world, right? And we already facilitate that training, but we need to change the narrative to say that. And she said, okay, well, I just need to talk to you about like how you envision we doing this, and we're doing this and like all these other things. And I said, Jesse, hold up. I'm like a visionary. I can give you the big idea, but the rest of this is up to you. Like, you don't want to ask me those questions. I promise it's not going to end well. You're going to be going 5,000 different directions and never make it anywhere. And so, like, that's an important thing that we all need to recognize is where do we fall into that space? The visionary can accomplish some amazing things with the right team in place. But you have the wrong team in place. You have the person who doesn't buy into your vision and isn't willing to tell you. I'll never forget, and I'm not trying to get political. There's a Jordan Peterson video, and it's where he is talking about the death of the Queen. And he was talking about that he was at the Kentucky Derby, and he had flown out, and he had to fly back in for the second part of the event. When he flew back in, they were shutting the airport down. President Trump was coming in, and all these things were happening. And he goes into the room where President Trump is, and he said you could feel the energy. It was electric. And he said, I thought to myself, that is dangerous. And they said, why do you think that's dangerous? And he said, because he was so powerful that people were afraid to tell him if he was wrong. And I'm thinking, man, I think back about my shop. I want a culture where they'll tell me, hey, dude, you're being an idiot. Right? And I think as owners, we really push back on that. But when you have a team that's willing to tell you you're an idiot and you're screwing something up, and is willing to communicate that with you instead of trying to protect your feelings and make you warm and fuzzy, that's when the business will grow. That's when you'll get what you want. But if you don't have a team that's willing to push back and say, nah, man, that's not working, I think that's a dangerous place to be. I really do.
You have to be willing to hear it, too. You have to be willing to hear the criticism.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you have to be willing to change.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to change. And
change is only constant in life.
Yeah.
Change is the only constant in life. If you hate change, deal with that because it's inevitable.
And it's going to be the one thing that holds you back from the thing you really want in life. Right?
Well, I mean, look anywhere in nature, right? I mean, you're either growing or you're dying. There is no stasis, right? So like, which side of that do you want to be on?
Right. And you have to be adaptable. Right? Mm-hmm. Like I made a video the other day talking about like my vision and where it's going and where I want to be and what I want to accomplish. I look back now and I say, you know what? Here's the thing is that like that has to move. And I think back, there's a creek right in front of the shop. And you know, Hurricane Helene came through in October of last year, right? And we're almost a year later. And you know that creek moved over 100 feet in some places? And so it changed the landscape and it changed everything around us. But what do? We walk a different path, right? And I think human beings were too strict and we're saying this is what we have. And we lock down this vision, this dream, this thing that we have. And we're like, this is where we have to go. But if you're not adaptable, if you're not looking at that and saying, you know what, the stream is in a different path now, I can't do that. It doesn't work. We do it every day with everything else. Why can't we do it with that? And I think that's one of the most important lessons that I've ever learned is that we have to adapt, we have to shift, we have to move.
If you didn't, you'd still be working on Model A's. Or I would.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. It was a blast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
You
And
too.
you as well. Thank you.